Yeah, so it's interesting when you make, the comments about who's our competition and who are we battling against. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this over, the last 6 to 8 months. And I mean, look, our competition is Saudi and OPEC against Shell, right? And we'll never be the lowest marginal cost operator compared to them. And I look at it and I'm all about free market principles, but I don't understand how we control production output when we have, thousands of EMPs, 1,000+ EMPs, and everyone's opening up the wellhead. There's no unison or syncing between them. And, I thought this was actually a good attempt by the Railroad Commission and some of the other operators to start, enacting some rationing in production. I think that the nation has to move as one in terms of production, but the oil and gas industry, it's never going to become unionized or socialized. But how do you control that? How do you control production output when there's so many operators in the space? And you have Saudi and OPEC, and they can do whatever they want, and they can do it quick and swiftly. We're kind of held.
Yeah, I think it's a big part of like what you mentioned with the cyclical part of the nature. We're not that old. We're only 30.
I've been in this business 10 years, and I've seen 3 downturns.
3 downturns there,
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
It's like, so it's every time that the getting's good, everybody just
goes to the corner and sits on their hands.
Yeah. So how do you realistically, and I know you're assembling a task force to answer these questions, but how do you flatten out the cyclical nature of the business and get American operators, obviously, Texas operators in this case, but Texas operators to try to, kind of being moving in the same direction instead of fighting each other, and then OPEC sitting over here kind of bullying us around?
No. I mean, that's a great question too. It's no secret that Saudi has a leg up on us in their cost of what it is to get their product out of the ground. But it's no secret either that the United States is the largest buyer of imported products in the world. I can tell you kind of an example there. If I went to buy a circular saw made by Black & Decker, and I asked them for a price, and Walmart walks in and asks them for a price, who's going to get the better price?
Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about, okay, can we compete in that marketplace? Yeah, we can, because we do buy other people's products, lots of it. And so I think that free trade that we talk about, especially under the new MCA, when we talk about putting a plan together, and I talked about it, taking it to the feds, we're going to have to do better under our MCA agreement today than we have done just this year. And we're going to have to recognize that if you want to trade with us here in the United States, trade, not a one-way street. But I don't think that we need to go out and penalize who we're buying from and make it a monopolized market where you have to pay our price.
Mm-hmm.
I think we as Texas, are very smart on how to market our products. And that starts from, number one, recognizing competition, recognizing actually where your market is, and then looking at the logistics. I don't know how much time we got left, but
go on.
I've got a story that, in 2016, I come from building waste disposal places. My business does part of that too. And I was trying to develop a huge incinerator that could be economically driven to incinerate oil field waste so that you could reclaim oil and stuff off of particles that come out of the hole. And I thought, if anybody could do that, it's probably the Chinese, because they have got lots of engineers over there. Mm-hmm. And so I got introduced to the Chinese shipbuilding company, who actually happens to be one of the largest ones in the world. And I flew over there and spent 5 days with them. And I'm not going to tell you the experience that I had, but I wasn't impressed from that standpoint. But what I was impressed in is they took me around, because this was in 2016 when we lifted the embargoes, and they took me to all these refineries. And I'm like, I'm here to wanting to build an incinerator. Why in the heck are you taking me around to these refineries? What they wanted was an American to recognize the need for natural resources on a consistent basis for China.
Yeah.
And I kept asking them, I said, well, why don't you buy it from your neighboring country? Well, we don't get consistency because we buy from Russia today. They have a pipeline directly to us. The problem with Russian people is when they have a breakdown in their process, they're not in a hurry to get it fixed. So our plants suffer and we shut down and we're undersupplied.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the Russians want a price increase, they just turn the tap off.
Yeah.
And we have to renegotiate that. And there's, whether we have a contract or not.
Yeah. What can you do?
So, Jim, we got so serious about this. This Chinese tell me this. We got so serious about this. We recognized that there was only two ways to get your product to us. You either had to do it by rail or highway to California, or you have to go through the Panama Canal. And what we learned is that those pricings stay harmonious. So they interact with one another. If it costs $1 to get something across there, the other one's charging $1. They stay neck and neck. There's really not a competition there. It's more of a monopoly. This is them telling me that. So I'm not telling you, public. That's what I said. So I asked him. I said, well, what would be your solution to that? He said, well, hell, we did. We went over and we talked to Nicaragua. We talked to Honduras. We talked to other countries about building what's called an inland port to compete and break up that monopoly, so that logistics would start working to get your stuff on this side of the country. And I thought, and that flight to China is like 14 days long. It's forever to get over there. And I'm on the jet coming back, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about this in my head, and I'm thinking, why haven't we done that? Why haven't we looked at that? And when I talk about putting that plan together, that's the ideas that I want presented by our industry to me, to write a plan to move forward in that sustainability of the market. That's what it's going to take.
So there's a story because the Department of Energy, when oil prices were hitting negative, well, one of our contacts at Department of Energy is like, if you guys have any ideas, just shoot them over. And Jake was spitballing. He's like, hey, our refineries are tooled for heavy grade crude. He's like, if money's not an issue through stimulus money, why not retool our refineries to manufacture light grade petroleum, and we can actually have quote unquote energy independence. And
that's a delicate subject.
Yeah, it is. Well, we were told by Department of Energy that they ran it up to Trump and
in a meeting with the CEO of Exxon, Chevron, all the big players.
Exxon and Chevron has set up a really good companies. I mean, they've got kind of fail safe in any direction that our market goes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They've set up where they can buy from the best buyer. And they own the majority of what our refining is here today, which I think is great. What I don't think we've done a good job at doing is allowing regulation to bring competition into that market so that we can start domestically running more of our crude.
Yeah.
That needs to be part of that plan that we talk about, is going to the feds and saying, how do we invite people that want to build refineries here that can run our crude to make sure that our commodity pricing stays, on some type of level that we can afford.
Yeah.
It seems to make sense to me. And I was like, well, I thought money wasn't an issue. Darren Wood said I was stupid. He's the CEO of ExxonMobil. He's like, that's the dumbest idea I've heard. And I was like, well, I'm reading the news. We're talking like $4 trillion worth of stimulus, and it's probably like $20 trillion in stimulus now. Who knows what it was? And I was like, that seems like a drop in the bucket to just go and retrofit these refineries.
It kind of is, though, in his statement, given what you look at regulation today. Regulations from the EPA in a refinery are almost impossible to comply with.
Mm-hmm.
I know because I work in them every day.
Yeah.
We have some very stringent emission rules there, and technology is barely keeping up with what those requirements are, but it's from public pressure. And I think that public pressure, as I said earlier, is misconception. I think it's education, what the public needs, not just putting stuff out there that we got to do away with this. Well, why do we have to do away with that? Show me the proof of that, please. That's what we need to be showing. So, I think that we, as Texas, have got to put pressure on them to say, look, you've got to get the regulations where we can invite competition into that arena.
Yeah.
And again, I'll say it till I die. Environmental can be protected just as well as our economic progress.
Mm-hmm.
It's just some people don't want that to be seen.
Yeah.
There's always a reason for all this.
Yeah.
And this year it's unfortunate because we allow it to get political. We don't think about the well-being of everybody here in America. And what is the well-being? Granted, environment's very important, but so is economics. I don't think that we have seen disparity yet from the pandemic that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking that when that does really hit us, people are going to start recognizing that, man, the environment also includes my pocketbook. Mm-hmm. And so We got to make changes to make sure that we're upholding that environment.